This program is made possible by the loyal financial support of the friends and partners of Family Policy Institute.
You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world.
Good evening and welcome to Salt and Light. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we're going to be talking politics, and in particular the many parties contesting the 2019 election in May this year. My guest in the studio is Mr. Peter Marais, who I think needs no introduction to South African voters out there. Mr. Marais has been 46 years in politics and has now made an announcement that he's joining a certain political party and is going to be standing as a premier candidate for that party. Mr. Marais, thank you for joining us and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Errol Naidoo. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, so I've seen in the media your announcement that you're joining the Freedom Front Plus as their premier candidate. And the media in South Africa has been abuzz because Peter Marais was out of politics for a while. And now you're making a comeback. And the questions I want to ask you, it's two questions and they're going to feed into each other. The first one is, what brought you back into politics in this year, 2019? And why the Freedom Front Plus? Many people are asking that question.
A very fair question. And I'm glad you asked it. It will give me an opportunity to set the record straight. Let's first start, why did I in the first place enter politics before we get to why did I return or why was I recalled? As a young boy, I only saw my father walking with a Bible under his arm. A poor man, firm believer in God and God's word, did evangelical work in Elsies River, Kensington, Windermere. He worked amongst black people. We still called it Masheko's block, because the chief's name was Masheko in Kensington. Don't know how many people know that. Kensington, coloureds and black people lived cheek by jowl. There's no group areas then.
And what year was that?
1948, 1949, up to the 50s. And my father preached, and he preached one word. We must love each other. We must always have hope. We must have faith. And we must have love for each other, but most of all, love. I saw him never complaining about being poor, wanting to be rich. He said, what's the use? I gain all this world and I lose my soul. I grew up in a house like that.
Okay.
As I got bigger, I realized the dice were stacked against me. Everybody, when I applied for a job, they hear over the phone, my surname is Marais. They invite me for an interview, only to find out this is the other Marais.
Yes.
One with the short hair and the one with the darker skin. And then I never got the job, although I was fully qualified. Peter Marais had to, when he wanted to go to see a film at a drive-in cinema, he used to hide me in the boot, and my fair-skinned friends went through the gate in the car. I was in a boot, and when the lights went off at the drive-in, I could crawl out and watch the film. That's now just to tell you. And I came into politics in 1972 when I bought my first house. I realized in Nooit Gedag, people of Nooit Gedag listening now can corroborate this. There was no streets. There was no shops. There was no schools. There was nothing. It was just an open piece of barren land. They built houses for colored people. I bought the house there, my very first house, a nice 3-bedroom house. And I started the Ratepayers and Tenants Association of Nooit Gedag. I was elected chairman and I fought. We had a school built through my efforts. We got a shop there, Mr. Dawood Khan opened the shop there. He's deceased now. People could shop there. We had properties rezoned for a church in Noordredag. We had robots installed. And the people said, Mr. Marais, now we feel we are citizens of this country. I started soccer field and soccer clubs there. And I wiped out gangsterism in the area. And then I came to the attention of the media, like Howard Lawrence of the Sunday Times. He was on Robben Island with Nelson Mandela. And Howard Lawrence wrote an article, front page in the Sunday Times Extra. He said, a new breed of black leader, he called me. You don't ask the white man for anything until he's used up all his own resources. And only when he's run out of resources does he appeal for help. He's no beggar. And from there on, I've always been in politics. I came to the attention of the Nationalist Party because of the vicious way in which I attacked apartheid, but in a pragmatic manner. I said I'm a realist. I'm revolutionary in a sense, I want change. But I am a pragmatic radical. I do what I'm allowed to do given the tools in my hand. And that landed me on P.V. Botha's, as Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. I studied economics at UWC, but I could only study there 1976-77. Riots broke out and my studies I had to stop.
But so that appointment by P.W. Botha on the Economic Council, was that your first real political kind of job?
No, I was chairman of the Bishop Leyvers Management Committee.
Okay. So
I was elected as chairman of the Bishop Leyvers Management Committee, which is a type of local authority that saw to people's service delivery issues in Noordredag, Valhalla Park, and Bishop Leyvers.
So is that where you cut your teeth in politics then?
I cut my teeth in politics. I came to the attention of the authorities because of my opposition to the system of apartheid and my speeches, which I made at many a meeting. The security forces were watching me at the time, but I don't want to go into all that. I can come back and say from there on, I had a meteoric rise. I was the only colored person that was appointed to P.V. Botha's Economic Advisory Council. They then appointed me to the YELD Commission, Y-E-L-D, to look at the new system of local government to integrate colored, black, and white councils so that they can move towards a more acceptable non-racial system. That was I think in 1982. I then started my own political party, the People's Congress Party, and they were first COPE. So COPE is not a name that Lakota thought out. It's my organization's name was COPE. Those years already. Congress of the People, okay. Which we then changed to People's Congress Party, and I was elected at Plettenberg Bay as its first leader. When the Labour Party decided to contest the tricameral elections, I first didn't want to take part in it, and then Andrew Young, the American, I think he's a congressman in America.
He was.
Yes, he spoke to us young upcoming colored leaders, and he said, don't make of yourself a political martyr. Learn from the African Americans, learn from the black people. We used every opportunity to improve the lot of our people. We never boycotted. You only boycott if you hurt the oppressor, he said. You never boycott anything that will hurt you, that will hurt the oppressed. So don't boycott school. Go to school. Don't say I won't take part in a certain structure. Go there to learn. Go there to acquire knowledge. How do you govern with South Africa? How are they budgeting at council level? Learn these things. Don't wait till the white man leaves the shores and then you sit there and don't know how to run a country. And it's exactly what's happening now. Those people in charge don't know how to run this country because they were always boycotters. They never learned how the process worked. Peter Marais was there. I learned. I said, oh, that's how you draw up. Oh, I got to watch out for that, got to watch out for that. That is how you formulate a law.
Now, if I can come to the Labour Party, you mentioned the Labour Party. That was for coloured people. It was a party to represent the views and aspirations of coloured people.
Yes, during apartheid, there was a law passed, non-interference in political act. Non-interference, which means Indians couldn't join a party that didn't have only Indian members. Coloureds had to join a party where there's only coloured members. Whites could only join a political party with only white members.
Wow.
And blacks could join political parties that only had black members. That is why I say, that was during apartheid. And that is why we rejected it then. How can the Khoi groups and all the coloured groups now come and tell Peter Marais, you should start a coloured party, like good, only for coloured people? No, we come from there. We rejected racism in the form of political parties only for a specific racial group. I can't go back. I tried to unite the people across colour lines and to say nobody is so bad he cannot become good. And nobody is so good that he can't become bad. So yes, I fought the election. We won 3 seats in Parliament with no money. And we had 2 seats on the President's Council against Alan Hendricks' Labour Party. And Alan Hendricks' Labour Party was financed by the Nationalists. Let me tell you something, a secret. In the 1984 tricameral party elections, Peter Marais, me, called for a referendum amongst coloureds to determine whether they wanted to take part in the tricameral parliament. And the National Party refused my request. I didn't go into the tricameral parliament willy-nilly. I said, no, test the people's will. Let's have a referendum and ask my people, do you want a tricameral system or a unicameral system? They didn't give it to me, and the papers were, I still have the press cuttings. Marais calls for a referendum. So what I'm doing now is nothing new. I called it then already. Let the people decide. That is a direct democracy. A referendum is a direct democracy. Parliament, with its 400 members, don't decide. 50 million people.
Let the people decide.
Decide.
There's been a lot of calls for referendums, and none of it has ever been acceded to. But so you went into the tricameral parliament.
Yes.
And what year was that?
That was 1984.
1984. And
I
you
was
went as the leader of...
As the People's Congress Party.
Okay.
And then we won the seat in Boerkaap, Mrs. Hussein. We won Ottery, Mr. Dennis de la Cruz. And we won Beaufort West, Mr. Enver Essop. We won those 3 seats. And we got 2 seats on the President's Council, and I preferred to go to the President's Council. I never worked my seat. I was the only speaker at all the political meetings because the guys around me, so their first introduction to politics, the leader had to be all over. I said, guys, I am not going to win my seat because I'm never there. I haven't even addressed a single meeting there. But I know we are going to win seats. And a majority of my candidates lost by 100 votes, 200 votes.
Mr. Marais, you know, just talking about the history where you started, your experiences with political parties, tricameral parliament and all the other things, just, you know, again, gives an indication of the vast experience that you have gathered or garnered over the last 46 years in politics. And now you're making this big, bold step to come out of kind of semi-retirement, retirement, to get back into politics after, 2004 to 2019. It's about 14 years coming back into politics because I'm sure you're concerned, like many South Africans, about what is happening in our country. And you're joining the Freedom Front Plus as their premier candidate in the Western Cape. And that is what we want to talk about in the next segment. We're running out of time now. But we want to talk about your motivation for coming back into politics.
Okay.
And then joining the Freedom Front Plus, and what is your vision, what you hope to do as a Premier candidate for the Freedom Front Plus. But don't go away, more with Mr. Peter Marais after the break. Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Mr. Peter Marais, a politician that's been in politics for 46 years in this country, with the National Party. The DA has been out of politics since 2004, but is now making a re-entry into the political maelstrom of South Africa. And he's joined the Freedom Front Plus as their Premier candidate here in the Western Cape, and he's here to talk to us about why he's done that. So, from what I can gather, Mr. Marais, your heart really is the protection of minority rights, in particular the coloured people of the Western Cape. That's where your heart lies. And you've joined the Freedom Front Plus to make that a reality. So tell us how you're going to do that. You've obviously had talks with the leadership of the Freedom Front Plus, and they've agreed to the protection of minority rights. And so how are you going to do this as Premier candidate? Because you're not the provincial leader yet of the Freedom Front Plus in the Western Cape, you're just the Premier candidate. But how do you see yourself protecting and strengthening and fighting for the rights of minorities?
First of all, Mr. Naidoo, let me tell you that self-determination is something brokered by America, United States, because the Freedom Front wanted it, and the head of the army, General Constant Viljoen, I was at the negotiations. I was there. I was part of FW, the clerk's negotiating team at Codesa. And Constant Viljoen, then the leader of the Freedom Front, said, ek het 300,000 gewapende manne. As julle my nie gee wat ek wil hê nie, verklaar ek oorlog.
Wow. What year was that?
That was during the negotiations at Codesa.
Okay, yes.
This sent fear and ripples through South Africa and internationally, because the South African army is a very strong army. They could hold out for 40, 50 years. And I asked him, what is it? And he wanted the protection of Afrikaans as a language, the protection of their land, guaranteed. They won't take away the Afrikaners' land, and the right to self-determination. Joe Slovo, Mbeki, Mandela at first didn't agree to it. And in the end, when it was nearly, it's now make or break, the American ambassador said he's going to act as mediator, and he asked the generals, the white generals, do not go ahead with this. Let me speak to the ANC. And then they agreed to clause 235. And it reads, any community, that includes a colored community, Indian community, Christian community, whatever, any community who share a common culture and language within a given territory has the right to self-determination, and it must be made possible by an act of parliament.
Has this ever happened in South Africa?
Now the Freedom Front is the negotiator who won the prize. Which boxer go into a ring, fight, win the title, and don't collect his purse?
Yes.
If the Freedom Front don't go and say, I want self-determination now, well, what's the use? They put up such a fight at the negotiations. But now, the Khoisan, the Griqua, everybody wants self-determination, but if they don't support the Freedom Front, how are they going to get it? They're not in Parliament to bring it up. It's stupid. That's dumb politics. The Freedom Front are the people who advocated this. The DA didn't advocate it. They still don't subscribe to freedom, self-determination. the DA still do not support that policy.
So is the Freedom Front going to table a bill in Parliament, a private member's bill, to ask for self-determination for certain minority groups?
Now, here we come to where do I fit in. I
Yes.
can't speak for the Freedom Front national leader. I speak as if I'm going to be the next premier. And I'll tell you, the Western Cape has its own constitution. It's the only province who wrote his own constitution, and the Constitutional Court has confirmed the legality of that constitution in 1996. I was party to the drafting of that constitution with Ernest Kriel. Rasool knew about it. He was in Parliament at the time. The ANC agreed to that constitution. That constitution empowers the Premier of the Western Cape to call a referendum in line with national legislation. It also empowers the Western Cape legislature to, by resolution, ask national government to pass a law over issues the province has no power over. Okay?
Wow.
Now, we can't implement 235, the right to self-determination, unless we can determine and quantify which community wants self-determination. And that can only be by a referendum.
Referendum.
Right? So I don't see how anybody that has a little bit of brains, and I thought Rasool had some, but maybe I'm mistaken, can say even though the Premier has those powers, he shouldn't use it. Why? Why shouldn't I use it? I will use it. I'll test the will of the people of the Western Cape. If they say no, it's no. Then they will stay under the present situation where all decisions are made nationally. Let me tell you also, Errol, what powers does the provinces really have at the moment in terms of the current constitution? They're in charge of abattoirs, slaghuise. They're in charge of graveyards, and cultural affairs and language and issues like that. They have no say, final say over health, over education, over police, over land. All those powers are with national government, ANC. So why do we waste money on a provincial parliament? Why do we pay them all these salaries? If Mitchell's Plain tomorrow asks for police, that police don't listen to our Minister of Police in the Western Cape. He has no authority over them. You wait for Celebi to instruct him.
So tell us, when you say self-determination, say
Yes.
for colored people, minorities, language groups, what do you mean by that? Are you saying that the Western Cape must become an independent kind of province from South Africa so that colored people can, protect their rights and their principles? If you talk about Christian principles, there's a lot of Christians in this country that says their principles and their values has been ignored by the government of this country, just completely ignored. How do they ensure that their Christian ethos and principles are protected and recognized by national government?
Thank you for a very, very intelligent question. Let me come back to what do I actually advocate?
Yes.
Most of the powers that affect the people of the Western Cape are held concurrently with the national parliament. Now, concurrently means I can take a decision, but if he take a decision on the same issue, his decision take precedence over mine.
The national takes
Right.
precedence of
So-
provincial.
We have no control over our hospitals, over Grooteskier, over Somerset, over Tygerberg, over Red Cross Children's Hospital. These are academic hospitals, okay? National government Minister of Health controls that. That's why it's in such a bad shape, some of these hospitals. Now, if they give money to the province to manage those hospitals, they call it conditional grants. In other words, I give you the money to the province, but it's on condition you spend it as follows. You have no power. You must do what they say. The same with the police. The same with the schools.
So there's no real power in the provinces. That's what you're saying. National politics, national government still determines everything that's happening in health, in all the key sectors. Health, education, policing, safety, security, all of these.
Ons speel poppe, you see.
Absolutely.
You know, we have a phone. We phone the national minister if you want something, but it's a toy phone. We speak here, but there's nobody on the other side because it's a toy phone. The Western Cape Parliament at the moment is a toy phone. Nobody listens to them. They can't change the language policy in the Western Cape. They can't upgrade our hospitals. They can't give us police services. They can do nothing. They are just there to show we have a parliament, but they have no power. I want to change the rules.
Okay. So you know, if you look at the state South Africa is in politically, with all the corruption, the state-owned enterprises running to the ground, the economic challenges, all of these things you have, it's done by national government. And what you're saying, provincial governments don't have any power to change that, to protect even the Western Cape.
No.
You were reported saying in the media that, you know, you want to protect brown people, your triple B, yes, the brown people. But you said all people are brown people. Some are darker brown and some are lighter brown. But you want to protect all people.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Explain that.
First of all, as a Christian, I believe God only made man and woman. He didn't make black man, white man, colored man, Griqua man, whatnot, and Indian. God gave man only authority to give names to animals. He didn't say we can name each other. He said, here are the animals. Whatever name you give him will be his name. But he called it man, woman. I know there are different cultures. You have the Afrikaner culture, admit it. You have a Hindu culture. You can't get away from that. Culture talks about your language and your belief, your lifestyle and those issues, the type of music you listen to and those things. That's culture. But people of different races can still have the same culture. And so when I said that all people are brown is to level the playing fields in terms of race. If you level the playing fields, we will get quite far. I know F.W. de Klerk, his great mother was a colored woman, brown-skinned. But all he said when they found it out, he said, sy was 'n goeie vrou vir my opa. Peter Marais' opa Gloetjie was weer Afrikaner, 'n wit man. David Lodewijk Marais. But I'm not white. I don't worry. I don't want to be white. But we all come from the same human being. Adam, Eve, and then Noah. So that is, but I don't only fight for colored people. I fight for all people, but especially for those who believe there is an Almighty God. Because then we can speak about the same standards, the same norms, the same moral issues, and we can find each other under this umbrella of tolerance and brotherly love.
Thank you, Mr. Marais.
Thank you.